I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Lancaster Homeless Impact Commission. And I know I'm supposed to read this. Pursuant to the Government Code Section 54953E, this meeting will also be conducted telephonically and video streamed live on Channel 28 and the city's website. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hearn? Absent. Commissioner Sarasaras? Absent. Commissioner Hawley? Absent. Chair Tremere?
Here.
Commissioner Paget?
Here.
Commissioner Latanzi?
Here.
Commissioner Crabson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. Where is
No,
it?
the red one?
So do we have a quorum? Yes. Thank you. Okay.
I don't have an agenda.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't have an agenda.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
let's get that taken care of. Okay, if we could all please stand for the invocation. It's not really an invocation, it's just a Thanksgiving inspiration thought. And then we will be led by the Pledge of Allegiance with Nicole Matthews. So as we come upon this Thanksgiving holiday and are so blessed with so much that we have, let us not forget those who are in need, who are less fortunate, and who are without a home. We remain grateful for our blessings and ask that in this holiday season, we hold those in our prayers that are hungry and homeless and in need. Amen. Nicole?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, so we have a quorum. We can do approval of the regular minutes for October 21st, 2021. Do we have a motion and a second to approve these minutes?
All motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, we have two presentations today. And first, our outreach programs presenter from LAHSA will be Kimberly Barnett. Kimberly, can you come down, please? Thank you for being here with us today.
Welcome. Am I allowed to put my mask down or?
You can take it down while you're talking.
Because my glasses get.
Yes, I know. I know.
No flicker. I'll introduce myself in the meantime. My name's Kim Barnett. I'm with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. I work in the Department of Access and Engagement. It's basically our outreach teams funded by the county and the city and some of the other funding that we get from either the state or the federal government. We have a variety of teams out in the field, including the teams that we have here in SPA 1 with our LAHSA outreach teams. I've been with LAHSA for a little over 6 years. I started in our community engagement department, who focused mainly on doing the homeless count and connecting with the community and stakeholders, and then subsequently wanted to go back into the field. I was naturally boots on the ground. That's how I started my work in outreach. Wanted to come back, so decided to come back to outreach and kind of have been working my way through where I'm at today. Hopefully leading and working well to try to end homelessness in the areas that we're working with our homeless outreach teams in our outreach delivery system, which I'm going to kind of go through today with you all. I understand that there is some new members of the commission. Are all of you new?
We have two with us today.
Oh, okay. Well, nice to meet you. So, like I said, I'm Kim Barnett with LAHSA. Oh, and I can do this myself. Sorry, this is the first time I'm here, so I don't know the setup. Let me see how this works. Oh, it's like mine.
It's okay, we've been gone for 2 years and we're still all trying to refigure it
I'm
out,
like,
so
where's the
don't
Zoom?
feel
Where's
bad.
the Zoom? Where's the Zoom, right?
We have new technology.
Yeah, far away, close, I need glasses, far away, I don't. So today I'm going to explain a little bit about our homeless outreach strategy goals and kind of the trajectory from where we were 10 years ago to where we are now, with including the development of our homeless initiative strategies with the county, and kind of where we are with our what we call our E6 program, which includes partnerships with DMH, LAHSA, and DHS, who are our multidisciplinary teams. We wanted to create a system that would prevent us from duplicating services. So a system that was robust in coordination of outreach, ensuring that we have communication between our providers that are already from the area and the providers that are coming in to support and the increase in outreach through Measure H teams. So we wanted to increase coordination amongst our stakeholders, our providers, and of course the people experiencing homelessness to avoid duplication and create a more streamlined system. That included increasing our general outreach workers, what we call our generalists. So we have a variety of different teams. We have teams that are focused on just what we call general outreach, which is initial contact, building relationships, making referrals, getting people housing ready. Those are our generalist teams. We have specialty teams, and I'll go into some of that in more detail. And then we have our multidisciplinary teams as well. We were also tasked to creating CES outreach coordination and infrastructure, which includes facilitation of weekly, biweekly, and monthly meetings, depending on how the region is structured, to ensure that we're communicating across the board with all the service providers. And then, of course, develop a centralized outreach portal, which is our LAHSA system, and I'll go in through some more of that in detail. So we have our outreach strategy, our basics: who, when, where, and the values. Again, who we're serving. We're serving people who are sleeping on the streets or in their cars, in vehicles, and some teams focus on certain target populations. So we have teams that will specifically focus on the transitional age youth population, or we have other teams that are specialized in dealing with just families. So those are the people that we engage with. We're everywhere. We're in the streets, we're in the riverbeds, in the railroads, underpasses, overpasses. Now we've seen a huge increase along the sides of the freeway, so we're in Caltrans areas. A lot of our public spaces, our parks, our libraries, our beaches, Venice, one big example, and then of course in our larger encampments. When we usually work during daylight hours, for us, it's important to make sure that we're maintaining safety. So a typical outreach team works from around 7 to 4 o'clock or 8 to 5, depending on who their employer is. But those are more or less the times that we work. Our values, whatever it takes. Sometimes I say we do everything but throw the kitchen sink into it. We have to get a lot of times very creative with the resources that we do have. We are definitely trying to be as much housing focused as we can, and as we're able to, depending on the resources that are available. We're definitely client-driven or client-centered. One of the major ways that we see success is when we know our community and we know who they are. We understand their story. We understand their challenges, their barriers, their background, and what it is they want, what it is they need. So we're definitely very much client-driven. We want to work collaboratively and coordinated. So one of the things that we strive is to make sure that we don't have a lot of resources, but the little resources that we do have, we want to make sure that they're coordinated, that we're working collaboratively. That if we have a large encampment that we have to address, that we're making sure that every partner is looped into the situation, everybody's aware of what's going on, and kind of have a priority-based focus on what is needed in order to try to make the greatest impact. We're definitely data-driven. If you were on my team, you would hear me constantly say, make sure you're updating your data at the end of the day. I look at that quite a bit on my teams and making sure that we are capturing all the information that we need. It's the only way that we can reflect the work that we're doing. And we rely heavily on them entering that information because it also helps us advocate for the things that we need and where we see some gaps. Not some, many. Before the outreach model, as I'm going to explain, it was very confusing. I was an outreach worker before, and I can tell you right now, I could get moved and requested by, the city, LAHSA, law enforcement. The pastor down the street had somebody, the library manager needed someone right away. And so we would just all kind of, and then everybody in that region who does outreach would get the same call. My path partners, my LAHSA partners, where we worked, we would all get the same call. And come to find out 2 or 3 weeks later after spinning our wheels, we'd all been touching the same person and not got anywhere with them. So we weren't being effective on how we were using our outreach resources and even our resources. And then it was very confusing for the clients that we were serving. Well, LAHSA said they were going to do this, and Kingdom Causes said they were going to do this, and nobody never followed through. Well, because we were moving people, we were trying to help people and kind of playing tug of war with them, and really not getting anywhere, other than maybe a temporary, maybe a week motel. I would put someone in a motel for a week, and then Path would go back out and look for them. Guess what? They can't find them. Why? Because I put them in a motel. So that was the outreach model before. And that's what we were trying to ensure that we focused on and making sure that we had a robust outreach model. What it is today, we have things to kind of put us together. Nicole here is one of them, who is our outreach coordinator for SPA 1. So first, we have a layer of our how our outreach requests come to us. And to the providers who are also within the same system or within the same region. We use our LAHSA portal, which oftentimes gets a bad rap because it does take us 48 hours, typically, depending on where we're at, but that's not what we strive for. I know we strive to do it as soon as we can. We make sure that we're looking at the requests that are coming in, and many times, even within the outreach system, we already know who that person is, and we're able to quickly identify where we're at with that person. So we have our outreach portal. Then we have what we call our SPA-wide outreach coordinators. So in each service planning area, there's 8 of them. We're in service planning area 1. There's an outreach or 1 or 2 outreach coordinators, depending on how it's structured. Who basically support all the incoming requests through LAHSA and are assigned to the appropriate team. So, and I'll go more into detail with that. But basically, when we go into the system, if it's a request that says somebody is outside of Starbucks, hopefully it's not attempting to hurt themselves, because we would have called 911 for that, not outreach. But let's just say they don't look like that they're doing well. They're talking to themselves. They're deteriorating. They look like they're not in good condition. We wouldn't send a generalist team out typically because we don't have that resource to support them. Although we do get those calls also, what we can do is streamline that and make sure that the right team is out there. Or sometimes, especially here, the teams are so tight that they can call the cell phone of that medical provider and say, hey, can you come help me? There's a person here that's in dire need of some support. So those calls go to, depending on, like I just explained, whether it's our LAHSA engagement team, our multidisciplinary team, or other outreach teams like our DMH homeless outreach mobile engagement units, our home team, who do have a different purview than we do and access to different resources as well. We have different types of outreach. We have our proactive outreach and we have our reactive outreach. I prefer doing the proactive outreach. It's more effective. It gives us time to really assess a situation and start working with folks to the point where we're able to build that rapport. We're able to get to know what's going on and find the best resource for that person. And there's a plan developed with the other providers if we're doing proactive outreach in a location. When we're doing reactive outreach is when we get that call from, I don't know, the chief of police of, whatever area that says, you need to come now, or this, I don't know, or else. So we need to get out there. So the proactive outreach kind of suffers when that happens because we have a thing kind of planned already, and when we're reacting to something, then it kind of pulls us away from what we've already planned to do. But we try our best to do both because I know there's a need for both types of outreach. I kind of went through these already, but I'll definitely go through them again right quick. We have different types of outreach teams. Like I explained earlier, we have our homeless engagement teams. Those are the teams that I oversee. We have multidisciplinary teams who are administered by the Department of Health Services. They often have a nurse or some type of medical arm to it, as well as substance abuse, and sometimes most of them also have a clinician, depending on, some of them have two different agencies that have the contract, or one. So one of them might have the clinician, the other one might have the nurse. So they collaborate and coordinate for those needs that come in for those particular teams. They also have a higher capacity to do case management and other, like I said, other clinical or medical need in the field. We have our LAHSA County Host program. That program is partnered with, there's two branches. The first one is partnered with our Sheriff's Department. We have 4 teams for the entire county. Yes, 4 teams for the whole county. And their focus is to work in a co-response model with the Sheriff's Department host teams as well. And they also only have 4 teams, so it's really hard for us to get to all the locations that we're asked to go to. We're currently focusing on very high fire severity zones and other very high level, like emergent needs in some of the encampments, along with our sheriff partners. And I have a second branch of the host program, which partners with municipal law enforcement in the rest of the county. So like your Burbank PD or your Downey PD, depending on the city, the incorporated city or the municipality who has their own law enforcement. The only partners we don't partner with is LAPD. They have their own type of program that partners with outreach teams, although they have been severely impacted with the funding stream, so they don't have that right now. We're still able to have 4 teams in each program. It's a very successful model. It's one of my favorites, actually. We have our DMH home team, and that's a clinician, usually with a peer worker. Again, they have 8 teams, 1 per region, 1 per spa, and it is a very great model. And right now, they have shifted a lot of their focus into focusing in the gravely disabled category, so folks who are probably better off in conservatorship, and we have a lot of that need as well. But it is a very long and excruciating process that they have to go through. We're taking somebody's rights away. So that is their main focus currently. We have our public spaces team, which is also overseen by Department of Health Services, and they are in libraries, parks, any public space. And then we have our other generalist teams. We have other teams that are funded through other means, either by a city or by a different program or a COG, and we have other teams like that as well. This is a lot, and I'm gonna talk through this. I don't expect for you to get all of this, but I'm definitely, you have the PowerPoint. All of the services that we provide are voluntary, and there's a variety of things that we can do. We can make a referral to interim housing, but in order for that, we need to have an assessment done and completed, make sure that the needs for that program are being met. We have different tools that we use, like the Coordinated Entry System survey. That survey helps us determine somebody's vulnerability. A lot of resources at one point were allocated based on somebody's vulnerability. The lack of resources that we have sometimes makes us puts us between a rock and a hard place. Who are we going to serve today, and based on what? If we have 10 resources and we have 1,000 people, how are we going to allocate those 10 resources? And one of the ways that we do is determining their vulnerability. So if somebody is very high vulnerable, unlikely to make it or continue living on the street, we need to focus on them. There's a lot of people who are on the border of being homeless. It makes me hurt to even say it. Sometimes we can't focus on them right away. We need to focus on the more highly vulnerable that need or that really need to be off the street because of their vulnerabilities. So we have different tools that we use to assess that. We assist with documentation collection. So those folks that I said, okay, we have a little bit of time, and as we're doing proactive outreach, some of the things that we do and the strategies that we implement is that we say, okay, what do we need to do to get this person off the street? Okay, where are you? Do you have your ID? Do you have your social? Do you have your birth certificate? Have you enrolled in any public service? Do you have, food stamps or any type of monetary, receiving any income? Some may, some may not. Some may actually want to get back to work. Okay, what do we need to do? We still need your ID. We need your social. We need to get you to the workforce development or to EDD. We need to figure some of those things out. And those are some of the things that we do when we're doing proactive outreach. I went all through that. The next phase, as we're doing proactive outreach, is focusing on, we want to be able to be holistic when we're dealing with someone, because it's not one or another. If they're all kind of competing and interdependent, right? If somebody's not well with their mental health, we can't get them to the DMV. It's hard. We need to address the mental health first. Or if somebody has a lot of sores and really need medical attention, we need to address those things. So it's very interdependent. We try to do as much as we can, but we focus on all these different things as we're doing outreach on the streets. We have connections to other types of services that we try to do as much as we can. Sorry, I'm a little parched. One of the things that I learned right away doing outreach was that a lot of folks had burned the bridge with their family, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of a conversation or trying to figure out, what burned that bridge and how can we get back to being whole again. I can't imagine being without my family, and I have gotten hundreds and thousands of calls from family members looking for their family who may be homeless. And all they need is a phone call so that they can come and help their family member, whatever that is. That's our natural go-to. As somebody that focuses on problem solving, one of the things that we want to do when we're out in the field is try to figure out what's going on. So one of the best resources that we have out there, to be honest with you, is family reunification. Because at the end of the day, we can give somebody a keys to an apartment. If they're disconnected from the world, from their loved ones, from their family, the likelihood of them being successful is very slim to none. We want to make sure that people are whole again. We want to make sure that we're focusing on. So the first thing that we want to do is try to see, is there a connection back to your family? Is that something that we can help you with, and what can we do to support? at this point, there's even funding available for certain family members that are able to take in and, try to support some of their family members as they're going through the process of housing. We have interim housing. Interim housing it's a large portfolio. We're talking crisis beds. We're talking intensive case management beds, shelter beds, winter shelter beds, anything that's in the meantime, in the interim. We have very little of that. I wish we had more. Right now, even here in SPA 1, all of our interim beds are full. I didn't check the report this morning. I knew yesterday there was 5 openings, and with the weather coming, it's going to be harder and harder, and we still haven't been able to figure out who our winter shelter provider is going to be. So we're working hard to make sure that we get that. But interim housing, great solution. It allows the interim housing provider, whoever they are, to work a little bit more closely with the folks that are enrolled in their program and start doing that case management as they're actually somewhere sleeping. They have a bed, they have a shower, they have meals. We have rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing is a program really meant for somebody who can get back on their feet, perhaps just, got down on their luck. A lot of us could be down on our luck and be just one paycheck away from being homeless. So rapid rehousing really focuses on getting people, either that are looking for a job, support, getting their first month, their deposit paid, get back on there, or even some of the rapid rehousing programs have prevention and help catching up with arrears to make sure that, I'm so sorry, I didn't turn off the, help just folks get back on track and back into some kind of housing. This portfolio has increased. It's not time sensitive anymore. Before you had 6 months to get into the program, get back on your feet, and start working to get on your own without any support financially. This program has added other services, ongoing case management, prevention, things like that, to ensure that folks don't fall back into homelessness. We have permanent supportive housing, which is definitely housing that's much needed and very little of. It includes case management within the actual building. It has case management, mental health, sometimes even a doctor who's at the site, serving the folks that are able to take advantage or get into one of these units. Then we have higher level of care, which are like your boarding cares or any type of location where you're actually kind of enrolled and you can't leave. It's higher level of care. It's very intense, and that takes a lot of work to get into those. Some of them are also for folks who have higher level need for medical attention, people that are on dialysis, things like that. So it has a lot more medical and mental health services attached to it. Who are these guys? I think that's our SPA 1 team, if I'm not mistaken. Outreach coordination. Our outreach coordinators are really what we call the glue of the operation. They're the heart. They are the ones who kind of keep us together, know what the priorities are. They see the LAHSA that are coming in. They're often included in the same requests that we are. So they're really trying to traffic control us, making sure that we're, focused on the work that we're doing and ensuring that we're not duplicating services. Sometimes we get projects that really require a lot of coordination. For example, when COVID hit, we needed to get the nurses out here start testing to make sure that our encampments were not getting impacted with COVID. So we need to start coordinating, okay, what team is where, when, who knows who, and let's get to that place. Let's get our public health nurses out to start working with the population. So a lot of coordination. That's only one piece of what they do. There's a lot more. They have regular what we call care coordination. So they have meetings where they're talking and discussing through specific people. So it's like, okay, team A, what are you doing with Joe? Okay, this is where I'm at with Joe. Mental health team, where are you? So we're going to work together with team A to make sure that team B that needs to get them to mental health can locate Joe so we can make sure that he gets to his appointment. So a lot of coordination happens in those care coordination calls. Also, a lot of resources or any resources that come down the pipeline or any changes that we need to do or shifting happens in care coordination. There's team huddles to address specific outreach projects. For example, I'll go back to the COVID testing strategy that we did a couple years ago when COVID hit. We would meet at a certain location. I can't remember, the Chevron here in town. We would all meet. We would have huddles. We would talk about who's going to go with nurse A, who's going to go with nurse B, what teams are going to go, is there any challenges that we have getting to the location, and what's the best strategy to get there, and do we already know someone that outreach has experienced that probably has been exposed to COVID and either needs to get an isolation bed or some type of testing done immediately. I kind of went through this already.
If somebody needs an isolation bed immediately, how do you deal with that? How do you find that?
So we have, there's a phone number that DPH established outside of the fact that we were with DPH nurses. At the time, right now, our isolation beds are starting to dwindle because the need isn't there anymore as it was when COVID hit. There was an 800 number that we had access to outreach, and we would triage that with the nurse, and then they would send an ambulance to pick up the person and then take them to the isolation unit. Oftentimes, the outreach team had to stay there and wait, and sometimes it took all day. When we were with our nurses, it was easier because they can call directly to the nurse triaging and, kind of help us navigate the system. Because as you can imagine, it was a handful of isolation beds for a population of 70,000. So one of the things for the isolation beds where you had to shelter in place. So once you got the room, you had to stay in the room. So, those kinds of things are things we even had to kind of troubleshoot with folks because they would prefer to stay in the tent and shelter in place in the tent versus going into a room. I know here in this area there were very limited beds, so we would have to go all the way out to Pomona or somewhere in South LA to get a quarantine isolation bed.
Thank you.
No problem. I just went through all the different care coordination and outreach models. LAHSA. Again, it's like I said earlier, sometimes LAHSA gets a bad rap, but it's really underutilized, and it's something that we definitely want to rely on, especially as we're tracking the requests that come in. If we're only seeing 5 requests come in through LAHSA in 2 months for Lancaster, there's something wrong. It's not being used the way we need to, so we're unable to show the need. Also, it also helps us track locations, and it gives us more than what we feel it gives us. It's not just the tool that sends us or takes us to the location of somebody. It also helps us get information of where we need to focus our outreach strategies or our proactive outreach. If we see that Avenue J and the 15 or the 14 is getting 20 calls a month, clearly that needs to be a proactive outreach location where we're focusing our outreach efforts there. It needs to be focused, but if we're only getting 1 call here, 1 call there, it really is determined by our outreach workers, the amount of frequency that they go, and it's usually because they're working with somebody specific in that encampment or in that location. The way the system works, you go online, and if you don't have online services, you can call 211 and they will enter it for you. You put as much information as you can that in the request, in the online portal, and then it goes to our outreach coordinators in the region. So for here, it would be Valley Oasis. They get the request. They assign it to the appropriate team. I think I kind of went through that a little bit more. And then it kind of takes away the guesswork from us, who's supposed to go. If it's somebody, like I mentioned earlier, that has a high-level need, we're going to make sure that the DMH team or that one of our multidisciplinary team goes out there and addresses the situation, because they're the ones that are most equipped to go and answer that.
I kind of have a question about that, just while you're on that, because I had noted earlier, because I do know that you do great outreach work, and when you assess someone who really needs to be off the street, as you said earlier, and to get them housed or in a bed, but we know our limitation here of beds and housing. But it's someone on the street, they've been assessed, they need a bed, they need a location, we don't have anything available, then what?
We continue to work on it. That's always, I've been doing this for 15 years, that's always been the question. There's not enough. We have to keep working through it. We find a different way. Can we increase their income? Once they get into their mental health routine, if they're on medication and we're working with DMH and we've gotten them somewhat stable, can they get a job? Can we increase their income? Can they now become a rapid rehousing client where they just need support for 6 months with rent and they're going to get back on track? So we need to try whatever it is. Can we try family? Can we try one of the interim beds? Do they need a higher level of care? We can't just, our job is not to say there isn't.
So I guess my question is, because I know how hard it is to get everybody immediate needs and beds until they get through the process. Are they also referred out of the area if needed? I mean, if there's beds available?
Remember I said we're client focused?
Right.
If they want to go, there's an opportunity somewhere else, if they're open to it, absolutely.
Okay.
I will say, being from a community similar to Lancaster and outreaching to people that I knew in high school, most of the folks that are from a community or in a community or from a community have some kind of tie to the community. So most likely, they will want to stay in their community. At this point, they could have a relationship with the church or with family, or like I said, they burned that bridge and they still want to keep some kind of tie to that family member.
While we're on that topic, I have a question as well. You mentioned proactive versus reactive, and that made a lot of sense. But your example was that if law enforcement saw somebody and determined that they needed a special team to come out, that you would locate. And I'm wondering what are the qualifications? How does somebody know? Like if you're, and I'm not going to pick on law enforcement, but use them as an example. Law enforcement aren't necessarily trained to identify if somebody has a severe mental health issue. So when they call in and say, we have somebody sitting in front of Starbucks, I think was your example, and we need a special team sent out. What is the criteria to require that special team, or do you send out a generalist to make that determination? How does that happen?
Depends, right? So our law enforcement are highly trained and oftentimes have a mental evaluation team that they have a little bit more access if it's a high-level mental health issue. So they can definitely tap into those resources, which, again, are not enough. I will say that mental evaluation teams are very, very scarce. I think they have clinicians maybe once or twice a week, if they're lucky, depending on how they're funded. So they have the availability to do that. I think our law enforcement partners are able to determine when somebody's in a psychosis and needs a higher level care, like a psychiatric medical intervention, and they have direct access to those resources as well, as they are tied with law enforcement or have kind of a different access to them. It's a first responder call. It's not an outreach call.
Okay. And so I think that's great. And so does the first responders also work with our outreach teams so that we know who to call? And then if the individual is put on a 72-hour hold, then is the outreach team connected or
meet with them somehow, knowing that when they're done with the hold, that they may be going right back out onto the streets?
Not all, not all. I know our host team does. Our host team definitely works together with our outreach partners in the area. And so if there's a situation like that, again, there's 4 teams for the whole county, so it's kind of hard to do all the time. But if we're able to, then we try to support and have an intervention when somebody is released. That doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen often enough. Sometimes our local deputies, or depending on the jurisdiction, understand the value and appreciate the value of outreach and how to work with us effectively to ensure that, if they have somebody on their radar, that outreach is called before, if it's not needed. If a higher intervention isn't needed and actual outreach is needed, then they know how to either get a hold of us or use the LAHOP system to ensure that outreach gets out there. So it really depends on the situation.
Well, it sounds like those host teams are invaluable to this process. Is there a host team that is specifically placed up here in Lancaster or the Lancaster area?
Yes and no. So they're the north. Well, the good thing is that you have 2 deputies that live locally. I think Palmdale. And not local to Lancaster, but at least local. So we have our host team and our host LAHSA team are divided by the Sheriff's Patrol, how they divide. So this area is within the North Patrol of their jurisdiction, but that includes the Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita, Topanga, and Malibu. And Calabasas and all of that.
So that's a huge area.
That is a very huge area.
Who funds the host team?
The county does.
Through Measure H?
No.
Okay. Is there any discussions? I mean, this sounds like very valuable, and when you talk about such a large catchment area, I'm sure that there's needs in every city. While someone's down in Topanga, there's probably a need up here. Is there any discussions about increasing the funding to have more host teams because of the growing need?
I'm not the right one.
Who's the right person then?
Probably your board supervisors or your rep.
Board
To have
supervisors?
that discussion, and maybe even the host. I can definitely make that connection with the lieutenant who oversees the project, and you guys can have that conversation. It's needed.
I was going to say, always a tough time with the funding. Would it be beneficial for the city of Lancaster to have a host team? I'm seeing Nicole back there in the back shaking her head yes, and
I'm gonna say I'm biased because it's the team I started and I co-created with Lieutenant Dietrich, so it's hard for me to say no. But there's also value to just our outreach teams in general. I also oversee the team that directly has impact here in SPA 1, and we're a small team. There's 3 teams. Our Lancaster team, our Palmdale team, and our weekend team with 1 supervisor. So is outreach needed? Absolutely. Does Nicole need more support? Absolutely. Does LA Family Housing need more support? Yes. More is good, but without the end, it's just more outreach and it's not enough housing or interventions. So we need a combination of both.
Donna, we had a person in the audience that raised their hand. Can we?
Do we want to wait for your question?
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry, we started interrupting your presentation with
And
questions.
it's fine. I'm just kind of going through what I've already spoken about, and it's, our LAHOP system. It goes to our outreach coordinator, then it goes to our team lead, then it goes to a team member, and we triage it from there. That's how LAHOP works. We try to focus on our LAHSA's encampment best practices, and I can share the link on some of that work that was done. Pretty much what it is we're addressing regions and areas of concern, given being client-centered, given enough time to do outreach and allocating the correct resource. So having a place to place someone really is the best practice for how we address encampments, and those fall within the LAHSA best practice. I kind of just went through that, but provide ample time to do outreach, ensure that the services that are being offered to clients are voluntary, client-centered, and trauma-informed, provide adequate, appropriate, and low-barrier resources, identify an experienced service provider or partner with deep ties to the community, and let them lead the project. And we're talking specifically about encampments. And then establish a strong team of coordination, which I kind of already explained how that's helpful. Is that it? I thought I had one last one. It's questions. Yeah, I'm done actually. Questions.
Who had a question?
Which
Somebody
we
had a
kinda went
question?
through.
Did you
I have
say
a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you guys have any kind of a print media? I mean, there's homeless folks out there, if someone wanted to engage with them and help guide them, I mean, not everyone has a phone. I mean, I realize there's some government-issued phones out there. Not always do they have access to the internet to go online and look into this stuff. So, I mean, if you or someone you know is experiencing or close to homelessness, or call this number, or it's LAHSA or LAHSA. I mean, is there something more than just refer to a website to find out if they qualify for any of the programs that you guys refer out? I mean, do you have anything like that?
We have our LA Hop cards. These are like gold, though. We often run. I've actually had to print my own, and it gives kind of the how to go through things. And if you're a community member, the best thing you can do is put it into LA Hop so we know and we're aware. There's an email that's established after you submit your request, and you're able to follow up. Either with myself, with one of the providers. There's a place where you can actually follow up, and you'll get a response, not exactly of what happened because we have to follow HIPAA regulations, but whether that person was outreached to or not. And then we actually take that information and start to do care coordinate around that. So like I said, if we're getting the same call for the same person on Avenue J and the 14, it's going to trigger us to have a larger conversation. Like, we're getting a lot of calls for this location. Who's working with who? Who's doing what in this with this person or with this area? But definitely our LA Hop cards are a good answer. Our LA Hop, sharing our LA Hop portal. And then once you put it on LA Hop, one of our teams are going to go out there. The Spa One teams are so close. They're tight. They're like family. Sometimes I'm not even welcomed.
I'm sure that's not true.
No, they're a family.
They're laughing back there.
Because they know it's true. But it's because they know the work. I don't know the work.
Well, and
I'm in headquarters sometimes. I can't tell Shaib what he goes through on a day-to-day basis if
Right.
I'm not here every day.
And
And
he
I
knows.
know that. And as an outreach worker at heart, I know that their work is hard. So we have to give them the space to continue to do their work the way they know works best for them.
Right.
I can't come out here in a bird's eye view and say, well, it should be done this way.
Right, because he knows the community.
He does.
He does. and LA Hop is an incredible resource that is so little known.
Well, that's
your point.
If that's
Yes.
the go-to, if you guys are if there's not a federal and a state, and it's now basically you're part of the county, I say the website's .org, but if you guys are the ones that ultimately can control what they qualify for and refer them out, I mean, we got to get the word out that that's the place to start. If they can't go to, I guess they could go to Valley Oasis on their own if they figured that out, or
They
like
have
Brilliant
there's
Corners or
access-
one of these places, but then they
There's
got
access
to.
centers, but remember COVID, right? So everything
Yeah.
was very limited. We had to ensure everybody's safety.
I know there was a fence around MHA,
So
which is crazy.
there's access centers, there's 211, there's LA Hop, and then of course we know that a lot of things, even though we don't want it to be most of the time, we want the system to work. Relationships are always key. I know you all know these three people right behind me.
Well,
You
not
know, for most
necessarily.
of them,
Not necessarily. Would you like to introduce them?
would.
You keep
Yeah,
referring to
and
they.
then you know what? I'm going to go back and apologize because when you first started, you asked about our new commissioners, and I should have introduced them. I said, yeah, we have a couple of our new ones with us, and I didn't, and I apologize. We do have 3 of our new commissioners with us today. Carol Crabson down at the end, and then we have oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Denise Latanzi. I can never remember how to pronounce your last name.
You did it perfectly.
Did I? Oh, good. And Troy Paget with us today. So they are all 3 new, fairly new, since our reconvening after COVID commissioners.
That's right. And I love to introduce, well, my right hand and my heart here is Shaib Joseph. If you don't know him, you should get to know him very well.
Absolutely.
He knows the area. He knows the people. He's a member of the community, and so very, very instrumental in the work we do. I come to Lancaster. If I'm with Shaib, it's like, oh, hey, Shaib, how's it going? You know. So I depend on Shaib for everything, Lancaster, Antelope Valley, and sometimes even other areas. Heather Varden, I'm sure you all know Heather. You know, she's great. She's in an amazing role right now that makes sure that things that need to be addressed are getting addressed. So that's, you know, what she does. And then you have Nicole, who's with us from Valley Oasis.
Thank you. And
We appreciate you all very much.
yes, thank you for your hard work. Kim, I know you said those cards in your hand are golden, but I think Troy would really like to see one. Is it possible that we can have a couple of those gold tickets to look at?
You can even have some printed out, whatever way.
I was going to say,
And use them whatever way. I think I might have a master file of
Thank
them.
you.
And have them on hand. Another thing cities do is that they put LAHSA on their website so that it's accessible. And then either on, you know, like the billboards outside with
yeah, I was going to say,
information.
I was thinking more like getting Lamar to put some, I mean, we got to get the word out. It's like,
Yeah.
it's.
The next thing I can't fail to say enough about is our homeless count. It's coming up. I'm sure Heather has spoken to, she's blue in the face about it. But it's needed, the support is needed, so more about that can also be added to the website to ensure that we have the appropriate coverage. As you all heard or know, the AV or Spot 1 is huge, and it takes a lot of work. So any support around that is also greatly appreciated.
One more question. You said something about called 211? What's that?
211 is like 411, like 911.
It's a county line.
But
It's
the
a
county
county
line,
line.
so you could tell someone, they could call 211 as well to start.
If somebody doesn't have internet, or if you're working with someone, a lot of times we're in this work or we're volunteering, not because we want to sit, but because we're probably already doing something at church, in our community, or with someone. Some of the best people that I know, I mean, how I started in homelessness wasn't doing outreach. It was as a community member, and I got really mad, without saying the wrong word, about a homeless veteran that was homeless and couldn't qualify for certain benefits because he had a pension of $900. So that's how I got involved in homelessness as a community member. And a lot of times, you know, we need to know at least enough to get some help for someone, and 211 is a great resource, and of course knowing the folks that are doing the work.
I would say LA Hop first. 211, I hate to say this, but sometimes can be very cumbersome, long wait times.
Oh, yeah. I feel like most government agencies
Because it doesn't just serve this issue, it serves any and every call and complaint, county and statewide and countrywide, that people can call in and say, I need help with. So they're very short-staffed, they're very overloaded, and sometimes it can take some time to get through the 211. I'm not saying don't call it. You need to call it if you need to, but sometimes it can be cumbersome.
It's especially good too also for after 5 o'clock, when we're already done for the day. If you encounter a family, it is they do have the resource at least to get them through. If it's a Friday at 5 o'clock, get them through the weekend. I will say, you have to be a good advocate and really stay on it to actually get the resource, but oftentimes, you're able to access that.
Well, truthfully, the problem's big enough. It should have its own phone number. A 3-digit, immediate, no-charge phone number, if you're, in my opinion. But.
Kim, one last question for me, and thank you. This has been a wonderful presentation. And can we get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that Kim presented?
Yeah, we'll definitely forward that to you.
Okay,
And
excellent.
just to clarify that we do have the LA HOP on our website, so it's already
nice.
there. And as well as, it will be on our Lancaster Connect website as well, so.
My question, Kim, is do you know how many people on average do the outreach teams serve up here in the Lancaster Palmdale area?
Like weekly, daily, monthly? That's a very hard one to answer just off the top of my head.
Well, let's go with monthly.
I can definitely bring that back to you because I don't want to give you an inaccurate answer, but it's a lot. But I don't want to say that answer. Let me bring you a better answer for that because
Okay, thank you.
it's that there's a lot of areas that we visit, in both the regions, and as far as Gorman, as far as the border of Ventura. So we're talking a large region. It's not just Lancaster and Palmdale; it's also the unincorporated areas and the forest areas.
Shahib's going to,
I would also say that question, you got 1 week where literally it takes me 3 days to get his license, his social security,
Right.
his county benefits, his job application. We went down to close, we go to an interview. So that's one client that literally we've been working with for 2 or 3 days. But
Right.
The next week, when I don't have an immediate client, they can serve anywhere from 30 to 100 people. They go out with 100 meals a day, so, and they all get taken by clients. So, it's a loaded question. It just depends on what we can do.
Well, and I think that you bring up an excellent point because we do live and breathe off data, and yet if the data isn't explained, like you said, it takes 3 days to get a driver's license for one individual. It doesn't mean that you haven't worked or that the system isn't working well for the homeless population. It just means that there are other entities that we have to work with, and we all know the lines of the DMV. We all know the lines of Social Security. So we know that this document preparation and getting ready takes quite a lot of time. We also know that in one day, if you hit 2 encampments, you can have 150 people. And so that's very helpful to know and to understand that we can't just look at data and rely on it to determine if a system is being effective or not. Thank you for bringing that up, Shahib.
Yeah, contacts versus the meat of the work is totally different. I can tell you we have, 100 unduplicated contacts a week, let's say. But did that mean that we only spoke to 100 people, or that we spent 3 days with 3 people trying to get them somewhere else and took us away from doing other, what we call, touch or starting to build that relationship? We want to do the more proactive work. We want to be able to get in there, get them connected, get everything they need to get to the next level and get them off the street.
Kim, I had a question. We talk a lot about data and how important data is for us to determine what's successful, what's not, where we need to triage specific to homelessness. With LA HOP, what does the data look like specific to Lancaster or SPA 1?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can definitely pull it and let you guys see. I don't want to throw Nicole under the bus. Do you have an idea? No.
I want to say it was at like 700 requests since, I want to say April of 18. But that's throughout the whole throughout the whole SPA.
SPA 1, yeah.
So it's not Lancaster specific.
Is there a way that we can take a look at the
I
data
can.
specific to SPA 1 at minimum? And I'd like to see some comparison to other spas, because it's my understanding in many presentations that other spas do 700 in a month versus specific to SPA 1, 700 in a year, which is a concern.
If it's not being used, then it's not going to get that amount. And
then,
it might not be comparable to the actual data of of HMIS, where we do capture the information of the
Cool.
work that's being done. LA HOP isn't going to capture that. LA HOP is capturing requests.
And I think that's important for us to know from a community end, too.
Nicole has a comment.
Yeah, so the one thing that I want to mention, LAHOP is awesome, and it works in other spas. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of people for one, right? So you're getting a lot of, I would assume, as far as duplicates. I mean, then the coordinator has to sort through that too. But the one thing that's very different up here, and she had mentioned it, is we all have one another's cell phones, right? So I have received countless phone calls from concerned citizens that didn't want to do the LAHOP. To be honest with you, I would rather, and this is probably because I'm old, and I hate to admit that, but I would rather pick up the phone and say, hey, I see this person out here who needs some help, than to go through an ad for me. And so I know I've received probably thousands of concerned citizens, and I know Shaheen has as well. So I think that's part of the reason why we have a lower number, if you will, just because the way the community is. I think it's more people like me that doesn't want to do that.
So how do we address that then? So if you're getting those calls, someone should be inputting that in, because it all comes back to data, funding, grant opportunities. City receives innovation funds from Measure H. If the data does not reflect, and I'm not saying that it's not accurate, I believe what you were saying. I receive phone calls too. I think most city staff do, our public safety staff as well. We are also not using that. If we start to use that, the data tells a story for our community.
As soon as we help the client, they're entered into HMIS, the Homeless Management Integration System. So even though that, civilian or whatever just called, we still have to go out and assess the client and give them some help, and that goes directly into HMIS. Really okay. So it will be in there, as far as the request wise, because somebody calls, like even on my personal phone, like just somebody I play my kid's soccer team, one of their moms,
Yeah.
she's calling, hey, I got a cousin who's homeless and they're over in this area. Well, maybe I should have told her to go to LAHOP, but just me knowing where that area is, what that client is, I can just send a team like, hey, you guys are going over there tomorrow anyway.
Yeah.
This lady is here, go assess the situation. And she's going to get entered in the HMIS.
Yeah.
The data we capture is layered too. It's not just one or the other. We capture the request from LAHOP and the information that we get from HMIS when we're trying to inform a policy or when we're trying to inform funding.
Well,
Just to touch on that also, you're talking about funding. I want to go back to the importance of the homeless count, because that is where we get a lot of the data, and that's a holistic data. It's from the count. It's also matched with what's in HMIS, and then there's an average to get a full picture of that. So without the LAHOP data, we're still getting a full look of the homelessness in the Antelope Valley.
well, one of the things that I would like to hear too is when we're talking about data specific to the city of Lancaster and the surrounding areas, Antelope Valley as a whole, I think we need to understand the variables and why our numbers may look considerably different than SPA 2, SPA 4, SPA 6. In a lot of those, where especially like down where Skid Row is, outreach team can go out and walk 2 blocks and have 600 contacts for a day. We have to drive 75 miles to make one contact for somebody that we're already working with, like Shahib said, for their driver's license. So I think it's important when we're matching data and we're comparing data at other spas that we also understand the variables that make, why our numbers may look considerably different than another regions.
And there are considerations when funding and allocations are being made for rural communities that don't match our urban communities. There are variables that are considered. So I don't feel like it's compared apples to apples, because it's not. There's no way. Like you said, it's not even 2 blocks, 2 steps in Skid Row and you'll find someone. So it's definitely different, right? So the variables used for rural communities versus our urban communities, or where there's more density, they're different.
So could you send us those variables that you use?
I can definitely work on some of that and bring that back.
Thank you.
And we'd still like to request the data specific to SPA 1, because if we're also saying that we need to market LAHOP a little bit better, and then we're also in the same sense saying it kind of doesn't matter, but it does matter, just so we can be reflective and responsive to what LAHOP needs are, what the homeless point in time count is, where we can create programs and really put some programs or public safety things forward in those specific areas.
I will tell you that all data is pointing at the same direction, no matter what data you're looking at today. It's looking at we need more housing or more shelters or more beds. Without that, like the data is going to keep reflecting that. You know, it's going to keep reflecting that we don't have an output. And that's just the reality. So we want to make a big impact or some kind of a solution. We need to start thinking of what we don't have. And we don't have any beds, any shelters, or any place to put people that need to get the help.
Kim, going back to what we were asking, when Shahib says that whether he gets a call on his personal phone from his aunt or LAHOP gets the call, when the data is entered into HMIS, is there a drop-down that may reflect that it was a direct call to an outreach team versus a call to LAHOP? And how, if there's not, how difficult would it be to create that so we have a better understanding of how the calls are coming in and how it's being handled?
If we're going to be true to the system, we're going to continue to use LAHOP. That's what's capturing the requests. The requests that we're getting on our personal phone calls, on our personal phones, or taking from community members and not being entered into the system are not going to get captured. They will get captured once the outreach team goes out and addresses it. So that's why we have to look at both information from LAHOP and HMIS, because not all the time a request is captured in LAHOP, but a request is answered through HMIS.
I'm sorry, so calls coming into LAHOP are not entered into HMIS?
Not until the service is provided.
Okay. So that individual that calls, whether they call Shahib and then they call LAHOP or they don't call LAHOP, that individual is going to be captured. But my question was then, how do we separate out to see the effectiveness of LAHOP versus the effectiveness of people just calling our outreach teams?
Well, at this point, we can't fully say it's being effective if it's not being used.
Then I think we may be needing to create a measurement for that.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing is it's not being used as much in SPA 1.
Right.
It could be because of the community would prefer to reach out directly to, who they know is going to be able to address the situation. And then that data will get captured once the contact is made via HMIS. So when we're looking at data, we're not just looking at the request, we're looking at the response as well.
But you're seeing LAHOP used and information captured through LAHOP more in the other SPA areas of the county.
It could be used more in different areas. Mm-hmm. Depends on how used they are to using it versus not using it. Depends. I don't have a
yeah, that's okay.
Off
I was
the
just
top
curious.
of my head, like what the usage is across the county right now.
I think what I was going back to a comment you made earlier about you only got so many calls out in an area where is a more problem area, so that's not accurate data. So that if our area, if LAHOP hasn't been marketed enough out in the Antelope Valley, then we need to be looking at that. I'm making a note of it.
As a solution. And then, of course, are continuing to use the outreach. However, we're accessing our outreach partners via, this task force, whether we're using it through our access centers, our care coordination meetings. All of those things are considered when we're looking at numbers and data of people experiencing homelessness in the region.
I have a question on the other end of it. When someone has received help, is in one of these programs, and you're going to go back and get data. It sounds like quite a bit of data for this group. I'm wondering if you have data on folks that have passed away, whether it be they don't do the individual, whether it's Valley Oasis, MHA, the people that once you've referred out and they're doing the help. I mean, do we have a number on the homeless people that have received help that get into a program that either commit suicide and pass away and are no longer in the program or accidentally overdose? Do we know the death rate of folks whether this area, other areas, is that information being kept in any way?
Well, and I think that we need to expand that out and understand that there's more than just Valley Oasis and MHA providing services to homeless. And an individual may be attached to Salvation Army, to Valley, Hope of the Valley, to AVPH. So there's, this is where information is shared in the care coordination meetings. And so to find that out as to where's the data kept for an individual that passes away, first we would need to know who is the primary care provider for that individual. So I think it's more complicated than just a...
HMIS does document that. When I have a client that's deceased, it's, you put it in the HMIS that the client is deceased. So.
And that database isn't just LAHOP, right?
No, that's HMIS. That's our homeless management information system. No, but not everybody who's deceased. So what you said is once we refer out and case management continues, somebody's placed into housing, are we capturing data of people deceased once they're placed into housing? No, we're not. Maybe the provider, if that case manager is still, if that person is still getting case management to maintain his housing and he passes away, then it will be. If he's in a permanent supportive housing unit and passes away and is continuing to get case management, then it will be captured. But us per se, no. We capture when we have a client who's died on the streets and we know it because we're contacted or we find them.
I have a question as well. You mentioned early in your presentation that you guys don't know who our cold weather shelter provider is going to be up here.
Not here. We're in the whole county. We're still working with finding providers to contract with our winter shelter.
Okay,
not just here. Here we do know who it is.
Okay, because we lose people on the streets every year to exposure
do.
here, and our weather here is extremely different than the rest of the county, and we're getting ready to turn. We're actually late this year. It's been extremely warm this year, so it's a huge concern. I was super concerned when I heard, we don't know who it's going to be. I was like, no, we have to know, because next week we should actually see our temperatures start to dip below freezing, and that's a huge big deal.
It is getting harder to
The
get.
60th and I shelter will still be continuing. It's
And
been
it
extended.
is getting harder to
And we're
get
in
providers,
negotiations
though.
for a place in Palmdale, but it's still in
It's still coming. So
negotiation.
it's getting harder to find locations and
That's the hard
providers.
part.
Our providers are stretched thin too.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Because they've been working for the last 2 years supporting Project Room Keys, still doing the work that they're doing. There's been a lot that's been happening the last 2 years, and everybody's pretty.
Yeah, and our outreach teams
Stretched
up here, I gotta say, have done just such an amazing job through COVID. There's no way that you guys could get enough credit for the work that you guys have done, and not enough people know about it. So my hat is off to you guys.
I agree.
Yep.
Kudos to the SPA One outreach teams, all of them.
Sure.
How many outreach teams does SPA One have?
I can tell you what I have. I don't know what the rest of the providers have. I have 3 teams.
I can give you a rough estimate. We have 3 teams with LAHSA. We have 1 team with Valley Oasis. MHA has about 2 or 3 teams. They got a veterans team as well. DMH has at least the 3 that I know, but I know there's a couple other teams as well with DMH. Because I'm just thinking Edge and Harvey.
LA Family Housing has a team.
And LA Family Housing has,
And all of you meet on a regular basis at outreach regional meetings or care coordination meetings?
now. And I told him to make sure to go to Avenue Bay for the freeway. He brought up the host protocols and things, and I don't, because the city of Lancaster, they work with us, you know what I mean? But the host protocols was specifically a measuring thing that we could have, once a host does a protocol, they put a post in the ground that says do not trespass in this area. You know what I mean? And then after that's done, we got outreach
Shahib, could you
Thank you.
put something together for us regarding those protocols so we could review them?
We could reach out to.
I can.
The lieutenant that oversees that and see if, they would be able to pull something together, as far as those protocols.
Yeah, well, we've had a meeting, like,
Well-
the host came up
well-
here, had a meeting at the sheriff's station, the public safety head was there, and no agreement or significant etched in stone was made.
I think maybe that might be another agenda item, to go over. I know we've kind of taken a lot of time on this presentation. I don't want to cut it short because we've got a lot of good information, but we have so much good information. I can see another agenda item here with protocols, maybe possibly. Do you agree, Melissa?
Yeah, we can definitely put
Yeah.
that on. So just so we're clear, when we're by a freeway, that's not the city, that is Caltrans and the
Right.
county. So that's why
Right.
protocols
Right.
are not in our
Right.
jurisdiction.
And we're working with Caltrans right now to figure out a better way. I would prefer they use the county protocol model. They use a 48-hour posting, which I'm not comfortable with per se. I would prefer more time, and then resources allocated to it, because it's not just about cleaning people up either. Like, we need to be holistic in the way that we're looking at things. I can't say nothing bad about the protocol. The protocol works, but it works even better when we have the output or the bed or the placement to attach to the specific project or encampment that we're looking at. So definitely want to make sure that we pull together a host presentation if that's something that the commission would like to see. I would beg that right now we're focusing on very high fire severity zones, that we probably wait until after the homeless count to bring that presentation up, because we're really stretched thin right now.
I understand completely. Thank you. In the interest of time, unless we have any really pressing more questions that we can't take up at a next agenda item, I want to thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
For
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
And it's great to meet
Great
you.
information.
And thank you for actually spending your time and investing and being part of a commission that's looking at these very important issues, because it's your voices that have greater impact than ours a lot of times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Kim.
information. And follow up on data. Yes, thank you. Okay. We have another presentation, yes, a place and time from AVPH.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good morning, I'm Mary Vong Pachon, Associate Director at Antelope Valley Partners for Health.
Good morning.
I do the adult and senior services. A Place and Time is our program for Antelope Valley College students that are homeless or facing homelessness. So we house them in shared housing. It is a program that is partnered with Antelope Valley Partners for Health, Antelope Valley College, and the City of Lancaster. It doesn't want to turn. There it goes. So it is a shared living program. We provide the case management piece of the program. Each student is given a life coach so that they are made goals, things to work on so that they aren't homeless again when they graduate from ABC. A lot of the students are getting ready to graduate this semester, so we can house up to 14 students at a time in each home. The home is free. They don't have to pay anything. They just have to focus on their studies at Antelope Valley College. They do have to be a student to enroll. They have to actually be enrolled in classes, not just a registered student. And they can apply through the Antelope Valley College website, and then they are referred to Antelope Valley Partners for Health, and then we place them in the homes. If we can't place them for any reason, we definitely give other resources, referrals to other programs that may help them or assist, a better fit. It's a quick presentation, so we do give them clothing if we have it, food, everything, so they don't have nothing to worry about but their studies. Some of them have gotten jobs, moved on to their own places, which is, the goal of the program. But that's about it in a nutshell is our program. It's not as long as LAHSA's, I apologize, but
So you have 4 homes
we have
currently
4 homes, yes. We
that can house up to 14 in each?
No, total.
No.
So we have
Total, right, that's what I thought.
Yes.
I thought I didn't understand that right.
No,
Thank
we have
you.
7 female and 7 male.
Got it. Got it.
There's 2 rooms that will share a bed, but everybody else has their own room.
Share a bed or share a space?
Shared bedroom.
Okay,
so
thank
there's
you.
2 rooms. Sorry, did I come up right?
I was going to say, what else is going on?
No. But like I said, they are provided the life coach. We work on whether they have poor credit. You know, we build on savings, anything that they can do. We even offer job opportunities at Antelope Valley Partners for Health. We do have programs for them to work part-time for up to 300 hours, you know, so they can start a savings. If they're going to graduate, we try to find universities, if they're going to go to a university, one with housing. Some of them go straight to a job, which is amazing. So we try to find apartments, but, you know, there's no housing available anywhere. So we do try to get them to have, you know, get better relationships with their families so that they can move back home if that's a possibility, or someone else they can do shared apartments with, you know, so that's what we do. That's about it. It's a quick presentation, sorry. I saw the 3
Awesome,
minutes and I
thank you.
said, oh, I have to be an auctioneer today.
Does your staff attend the care coordination meetings for the
Yes.
TAY population?
We do. I do the adult, and our life coach does the single. Yes, so we do attend those. Yes.
And, you know, we were talking about sharing a bed and joking, but what happens when there is a couple that are both students that are homeless? Is there a place up here in Lancaster that will accept a couple?
They may be able to be put in a hotel, but not in our housing, no. They have to be single.
Do you
to be
know
in
if
our
there's
housing.
any other housing programs that will accept a couple?
No, not that I know of, other than them
Kensington
placing-
campus, their permanent supportive housing option there, it's not something that they just roll out all the time, but there are some couples that were formerly homeless, now housed, that are living together at the campus.
Yeah, because I would imagine that might be a barrier if somebody was in a relationship and qualified but wanted to be with their partner,
Right.
that if only one could be housed, then they may end up remaining on the street, so.
Right.
Well, it brings us back to the lack of housing for families.
For families,
It's the
yes.
same thing.
That is the main barrier up here, especially for those who are getting ready to graduate. Where do we go? Back to our car? You know, so we try so hard to find something for them so that does not occur. And then these are the items that we provide. The school provides laptops, gas cards, bus passes, anything that they need, plus their food pantry. We have a food pantry. We do, like I said, the case management. We take care of the repairs in the home. You know, so we provide clothing. We also provide food as well. So it's just mainly to give them a place to finish their schooling, get back on track, and get them.
So if people want to donate items that you might need, furnishings or clothing, do they do that through AVPH?
Yes, yes.
Are the participants able to take the furnishings with them, or does that stay in the home?
That stays in the home unless it's something that they brought, like a desk chair or something that's more comfortable than what we have. Then obviously they'll take their own things with them.
Does the program pay for storage? Because I know storage tends to be a big issue when it comes to homeless and having a place to store their possessions.
No, it does not pay for storage, no.
And one last question. I'm so sorry, Mary. I know you need to go.
No.
Does this program do VI SPDAT? And if so, what acuity level does this program tend to serve?
So we don't do the SPDAT on this program. We do look them up in the HMIS to see if they have tried for other housing programs. And then we do a questionnaire to see if they are a fit for our program, whether if they need MHA DMH, anything else that's, may be a better fit for them, but we don't look at the score so much.
So it's an assessment. You do
Yes.
an assessment
Yes.
for each candidate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So if you know of anybody, tell them just to apply on the website. If you see any homeless college students, they just go on the website. There's a link, and they just put in their information, and then it gets rerouted to us. Okay?
Thank you. We appreciate
other
the
questions?
partnership with the city and the college. We know it's a
Yeah.
great program.
Yes,
and
it is a
students are
great
getting
program,
housed.
especially
Yes.
now we have a new house, and they're also amazing. They look like little model homes.
And can we get a copy of this presentation as well, please?
That would be great.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time.
Turned off my mic. Public business from the floor at this time, City Clerk. I don't have any speaker cards today.
There's no callers at this time.
No callers and no speaker cards. Okay. So commissioner comments. Does anybody have any comments that they would like to make today?
I do. One of the things that we hear from our outreach teams is a concern about used needles, dirty needles out in the encampments, out on the streets. And I know Valley Oasis has been working on a program, putting together a collaborative program to do a needle exchange. And it's moving along quite rapidly. This is really important because, we do have kids in the encampment sometimes. We don't want to see them, stepping on a dirty needle. We don't want to see bloodborne pathogens spreading through the encampments or even with an individual. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask to put the needle exchange program through Valley Oasis and Partners on the agenda for December if possible. So we could hear more about that and hear what, how we can help.
That'd be great to get a status on that.
What a great presentation today. That was really, really informative. So I'm just really thankful, and I'm glad I'm back.
We're glad to have you, and I'm going to say your last name 3 times so don't stumble over it again. Latanzi. I apologize.
It's good to have you back, Denise. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and one of the things that I know that I have to be mindful of, and I think that we do, is we really can't compare the apples to the oranges. And I know this is brought up in meetings with the funders, that everything up here, when you come over that crest at Acton, the world changes. And it's even with the homeless count, we don't walk down the street and find 5,000 people. We have to go out and really look for them. I still think that's something we should really push for, changing the time frame when the count happens up here, where we can actually have our homeless out and walking about in the warmer parts of the day instead of at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think these are things that if those small details changed, we would have more accurate counts. And as Melissa said, with the count being accurate, then there's also the funding that comes with it. But this was an excellent, but it's just those variables that I think that we really need to take into consideration when we're comparing the data from the different spas and up here, and what are the reasons that ours may look completely different. And that's going to come from the streets. That's going to come from the direct service providers. So I look forward to more presentations coming from the direct service providers so that we can really dig down into those weeds and understand those variables instead of just looking at a data sheet and going, oh, why are our numbers so low? Or, oh, why does it look this way? I think we need to understand those variables.
Got it. Thank you. With that, we went a little long today, but it was all really good information, good dialogue, good questions. Thank you, Nicole, for hanging in there, and thank you so much for hanging in there and waiting for your presentation time. I appreciate it very much. So our next regular meeting will be December 16th at 10 a.m. And with that, the meeting will be adjourned.